Good morning, everyone, and welcome to FPC Radio Live. It is Thursday, September the 22nd, 2022, and we are gearing up for the start of Week 3 here in the NFL. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. So I don't know, John. I was trying to hype this up, but compared to what we have had so far on some of these primetime games, maybe save for the Bears, this was quite a step back. So I'm pretty unfortunately I'm not too excited or thrilled with the storylines, I guess, so to speak, with these two teams.
No, we love quarterback matchups, right? So week one, it was Josh Allen against Matt Stafford. Week two was Patrick Mahomes against Justin Herbert. And tonight we got Mitchell Trubisky against Jacoby Brissett. So that's not as exciting.
No, not at all. So thankfully, though, in the world, in the NBA world, we got some, I wouldn't call it exciting news, but at least talkable news. And no, I'm not talking about Doc Rivers' Twitter likes. I'm talking about Ime Udoka and the news that apparently is breaking right now, or at least late last night, that he is facing a possible lengthy suspension from not the NBA, John, but the Celtics organization for what I guess the rumor out there, and I'm not giving Woj too much credit because he kind of threw something out there last night that really opened up the door for interpretation. I thought that was wildly irresponsible coming from someone from his position, but that's beside the point. Apparently, he had a intimate and very noteworthy to mention consensual relationship with a female staff member with the Celtics. Now, again, I'm not commenting on the morality and his personal life and anything like that, but I'm talking from a strictly, did this cross the line? Well, in some cases, yes, but not in the legal sense. And that's something that I think obviously everyone is sensitive to, certainly now more than ever. And fortunately, it doesn't seem like that's the case, but I'm shocked that the rumor out there is that it could be a possible full season suspension, John. I know we're discussing based on very little information, so we're trying to be, just kind of stick with what we know. But this is just such an odd story, John. So certainly odd to wake up to if you went to bed early last night.
Yeah, this is a weird story, right? Because obviously organizations have their handbooks and the employees have to follow that. And in many of the workplaces, if not most of the workplaces, you can't have a relationship with someone, especially if it's a subordinate. Now it can work either way, whether the woman has the higher ranking job or the man has the higher ranking job.
It's a weird dynamic because of sports, right? And him being a coach. Because he has authority, but how far-reaching is that? You know what I mean? Because there's so many layers when it comes to these professional sports teams.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, look, this is what we're left with is speculation, right? Because a Woj's tweet was just kind of thrown out there, and it's like, does this have any? The first thing I was thinking of is tampering. There was something going on with Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving somehow would be involved because he ratted everyone out. But that would be more of a league issue as much as anything else.
Well,
right?
I saw someone someone tweeted that based off that Woj tweet, they had no idea if he just missed a meeting or was hiding kilos of coke at TD Garden.
Right,
it was that's what I'm saying. It was I mean the reaction to it and tweets like that I thought were pretty cleverly comical, in terms of just speaking to how vague that tweet was. And that's why I said it was kind of, in my opinion, a bit irresponsible, because we know how the internet works, and wild speculation and all those the fake quote brigades out there that post things that try to the ball sack sports of the world, all that type of stuff. They ran with it, so now it's now the internet's littered with all these fake quotes, and no one knows what's going on. And look, I mean, based on what we know, or at least what's been reported, the biggest issue comes from what's happening at home. For the most part, It doesn't seem like I said, the key word being consensual. That's obviously a huge situation in this. And again, by everything we know, as far as we know, There was no stipulations involved. Now, again, if I'm speculation, but if it takes another level and it says, oh, this relationship came about because of a necessity or because of a requirement to get a job, that type of thing, which again,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, there's no indication that is the case. This just, professionally, yes, it probably crossed the line. Absolutely. Because like you said, I mean, these huge companies, organizations, they have guidelines for this. It's very, it's a very sensitive issue, and as it should be. The biggest issue is morally. Obviously, Ime's, not single, so this brings up that question. But when it gets to that point, it's like that has nothing to do with what's happening on the court. You know what I mean? That has no integrity of the NBA. Now, is he going to have to deal with trust issues with his players now? That's one of the bigger fallbacks of this. And I'll ask you this: Do you think there's going to be an issue? Because what happens when Ime's preaching discipline?
Right.
Does it ring on deaf ears, or do we just kind of not just like look at this and ignore it? Because that's not what I'm suggesting, but look at it as maybe just a lapse in judgment and realize that he's human. Now, again, I'm not trying to absolve him. I'm just trying to look at it from the team's perspective, because by all accounts, they respect him greatly. This isn't a guy that is, half the players like him, half the players don't. No, by all accounts, I mean, in his first season, he really won the players over. So does he lose some of that, John?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, you might have a player that when he's preaching that says, well, you had no discipline yourself. You're engaged to Nia Long. You didn't show, you weren't faithful to her. I don't know. Sometimes I hope to think sometimes, he may get more street cred with some of the players saying, wow, look at our coach. He's still alive. He's in his mid 40s, but he's, still alive. But it's just a weird situation because, again, this is frowned upon in most workplaces. And I get it, especially if she's a subordinate, because now she's beholden to him for her job, if that's the case, and she has to go along, get along. Yeah, it's a weird situation. And the ball's literally in the Celtics court, and they're going to make a decision here, and then where they go from here in terms of who will be the interim coach. I don't know if this is going to be a permanent thing where they just fire him.
I honestly can't imagine. Based on, again, just what we know, I'm not, thrilled. I'm not absolving him of his wrongdoings, but I feel like this isn't a situation. Again, based on what we know, this isn't a situation that should cost him his job. And look, part of that success, I get it. I understand that's how sports work. I mean, we talk about it all the time in the NFL. I mean, if you can still play, you're going to get a shot no matter what you've done, short of murder. You know what I mean? Like you're going to get an opportunity eventually if you're a talented player. And I think obviously the success of going to the NBA final in his first year, the buy-in from the players and kind of the trajectory of this team and where we all assume it's going or could go. I don't think the organization is going to do that. But then again, I feel like if you suspend him an entire season, that's a pretty strong self-inflicted wound there, I think, unless you can somehow, I mean, again, you have Brad Stevens to coach if necessary, you know what I'm saying? But it just, I don't know. It's just such a strange, excuse me, just a strange situation to wake up to,
Yeah, it really is. And the rumor mills are out there. And again, one person says one thing, one other person says another thing, that assistant coach Joe Mazzola would take over because they really want to kind of separate Brad Stevens from coaching, which I think makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
At that point, if this had been the media relations director who was having an affair with the assistant media relations director, they'd probably both be fired. Unless they went into human resources and talked about this. And at some companies, you go into to human resources and say, look, just to let you know, we are dating. And the thing is that makes this very difficult is like, where are you supposed to meet people? I mean, maybe I sound like the old guy here, but there's a lot of people that are married that met in the workplace. Now, the question is, was one the subordinate to the other? That becomes a little bit more difficult, and we know what has happened. We saw John Farrell, who, the former manager of the Boston Red Sox, was having an affair with a reporter from NBC Sports Boston. Now, that's a little bit different because they're not working for the same company, but, that's really an awkward situation as well. We've heard rumors of this happening for other Red Sox managers.
Yeah.
Most of those have pretty much been substantiated. So, yeah, it's just like the times have changed, though. When that took place, that was 6-7 years ago. As we move on, it becomes much more of a delicate situation.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. I'm sure we'll get some more definitive news here in the next day, hopefully, because the longer you let this speculation run, the further away we're going to get from the truth when it comes to talking about this. So, as I mentioned very unenthusiastically at the start of the show, we have Pittsburgh at Cleveland today for Thursday Night Football, and like I mentioned, I said there wasn't much intrigue. I mean, there's a little. Because again, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. I mean, it's a classic NFL rivalry. Again, if you can ignore Cleveland's Cleveland, but not really Cleveland situation. You get what I'm saying, right, John? From the pre,
oh,
the
yeah,
pre,
no,
yeah,
the real rivalry is the Ravens, who were the Browns, and the Steelers.
Yeah,
this is an
is formerly
game.
known as the Browns.
Yeah, that's why when people always say, "Well, Belichick has a problem with the Cleveland Browns," it's like, no, the Baltimore Ravens fired him. Not the Cleveland Browns. So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's different. So yeah, it becomes complicated. Indianapolis was in Baltimore. We get all that. That's a marquee franchise, more so when it was in Baltimore than Indianapolis, but still, it's the Colts. But yeah, I mean, Pittsburgh's dominated this rivalry, obviously. The only victory, although they've met twice in the playoffs, which is weird. The only two times the Browns went to the playoffs was back in 2002 when they lost to the Steelers, and then just 2 years ago, they beat the Steelers in a wild card round, and then they end up losing at Kansas City. But look, we always look at the quarterback matchups. We're both, quarterback whisperers or quarterback admirers or whatever the hell we want to call ourselves. And this is not a real inspiring matchup, to say the least. No. Right? I mean, if it had been when it was Roethlisberger and Mayfield, at least it was a little more intriguing because, one guy's going to the Hall of Fame and the other guy's, whether you like him or not, is certainly got a personality.
Polarizing, at least.
Very polarizing. Yeah, without question. I mean, he's, a guy that people all have opinions on. So this one just doesn't really catch, especially on a weekend when we get to see the two best quarterbacks in football go at it in Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady late Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I'm always going to root for Jacoby Brissett. He's a very easy guy to root for, and certainly on that Browns team, there's certainly not a full cast of likable characters on that team. So to root for Jacoby Brissett is easy, but you kind of know who he is. He's a guy who can, at his best, play a very solid game and give you an opportunity to win. It's just not sustainable. He's not a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. But the intrigue here is not so much. I mean, I guess there is a little bit more intrigue here because the Bengals are 0-2. The Ravens are 1-1. And there, two of these teams in the AFC North this past weekend, including the Browns, blew late leads. Like how can you absolutely blow that type of leads? So I guess in a sense, perhaps the intrigue comes from, well, what if the Ravens are just mediocre? And I'm not talking about their offense. Their offense is fine. Lamar Jackson's fine, but they have one of the worst pass defenses in the league, and it has been for the last couple of years. So what if they're just mediocre? All of a sudden, you're going to have a division full of just mediocre teams because Pittsburgh, look, they have their moments. They're not the same without TJ Watt, and they certainly are, it's hard to hate Mitch Trubisky, but clearly, I mean, again, there's only so much he can do at this point. So I don't see them as any sort of threat. I mean, again, it's the Steelers, but I don't know. I'm starting to look at this division as just kind of a mediocrity.
Yeah, I mean, as it was kind of last year, right? Cincinnati won it at 10-7. Pittsburgh was 9-7-1, and then you had the other two teams at 8-9 because of all the injuries. So it was just kind of this bunched together division, and then Cincinnati got hot in the postseason. We know that. But yeah, I mean, I expected Baltimore to win this division, and I still do. But their defense has been a problem, and it was last year. And so far this year, we saw what Tua did in the fourth quarter, throwing 4 touchdown passes. It's as if Baltimore stopped playing in that fourth quarter. So yeah, these games become important. And you look, if you're Cleveland, you're just trying to hang on until Deshaun Watson gets back. I mean, if you can be a 500 team and then he comes back, maybe you got a chance to sneak in as a wild card or a divisional champ.
Great shape in that division at 500 in what, 8 weeks, 9 weeks. So
exactly, that's all you're trying to do is hang on.
And look, I mean, this is a change from what we thought about going into the season, because I mean, I didn't think the Bengals were going to just catch fire and all of a sudden become this machine like team. I mean, not every team that goes to the Super Bowl does that, but I didn't expect them to struggle this much this early. And that's concerning, because I mean, if you would have told me, the Bengals would be 0-2, I'd be like, yeah, I don't see that. I mean, it's not, wouldn't be surprised. It's the Bengals. We're not talking about a team with a lot of history or recent history of success. So I think that's changed over the first couple weeks. I'm looking at it now like, well, I don't know. Can the Bengals fix themselves in time? Can they get that offensive line working cohesively before it's too late? And maybe because they play in the AFC North, maybe they will be. Because again, I'm starting to readjust what I think about this division. And as I think the best unit, or I guess right now, the unit that's probably playing the best is the Ravens offense. But outside of that, I mean, you're not seeing much from these other teams.
No. I mean, Cleveland, when you look at it, had 2 kind of bizarre games to start the season. They were fortunate to beat Carolina, and then they end up blowing that lead against the Jets. Yeah, Pittsburgh was fortunate to beat Cincinnati because Cincinnati's long snapper got injured, and next thing you know, Cincinnati can't even make an extra point to win the game in regulation. Baltimore looked solid in the first week and then looked good for 3 quarters against Miami. And I'm like, this is the team I thought they would be. And then they just completely fell apart. So yeah, this division's up for grabs. And you kind of look, and I know it's only 2 weeks, but we're doing a daily show here, so we must discuss the AFC. Some of the teams that we thought were going to look better haven't looked as good. Like Denver has not looked good. The Raiders, it's not a surprise to me. I just think the Raiders.
Look, I wasn't really high on Denver, but certainly I didn't expect them to struggle this much the first 2 weeks. So I'll say that.
They're burning timeouts in the third quarter. Like, they can't even get the game management right. And then you look at the Raiders, which, let's ride, get rid of our timeouts. Actually, there's a casino in Vegas that's giving back the customers money if they bet on Russell Wilson as MVP.
Really?
Which is, it's obviously it's a really good PR move. Like, it's like, you have no chance in this bet, so here you go. Here's your $100 back. I
like that. That's a creative way to kind of stoke your rivals there, because obviously being Vegas, not that they're doing much better at 0-2. So.
No, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
But then again, I like that. But fortunately for me, I wasn't foolish enough to put any sort of money on Russell Wilson to win the MVP. So not even at the odds that he had, it wasn't even worth it. So
no.
So real quick, I guess, who wins tonight? Because I think this is a bigger game for the Browns. I don't really see where the Steelers are going outside of eventually to Kenny Pickett to see if he's the future. That's what their trajectory is this season. The Browns, like you said, could stay afloat. And when you get Deshaun Watson back, all bets are off, because there's obviously a higher ceiling and there's more potential. I'm not saying it's a guaranteed thing, because like I said, I've expressed my not doubts, but my hesitation in crowning Deshaun Watson an elite quarterback. Let me see what happens after being out of football for so long. And, let's see if he can improve on what he had already done in the league. So for the Browns, I think this is it's obviously more important for them. And I think there's more at stake for them. I think someone has to win this game. I mean, technically, I guess they could tie. You know what? No. Am I gonna pick a tie?
We've had one already this year, right?
You know what? I'm gonna go with the tie, John. I am taking the tie.
Soccer?
Yes. 0-0. No, okay, it won't be 0-0, but no, I'll go with the tie. Mostly just to say I just don't think we're gonna get great football tonight. Like, I don't think any team is gonna we're going to see more instances of teams trying to lose the game than I think trying to win the game. And to me, the best way I can describe, I can't pick a loser. That's where I'm at. It's not that I can't pick a winner, exactly. John. I can't pick a loser. But okay, I'm going to go with the tie.
I think one of the best. Yeah, why not? Because I'm sure there's a line in Vegas, bet the tie, especially when you're talking about these two teams. Pittsburgh had a tie last year.
They have a tie. I feel like they're the only team that has ties regularly.
Have ties. Oh, yeah. I mean, if you look back at some of the records before overtime, you'd see a team go 8-4-2 or some crazy record like that. But the other thing, too, is what's the average yards per attempt combined for these two quarterbacks tonight? Does it break 6? Like, because these both guys are both check down guys.
Well, the thing is Jacoby Brissett could. I mean, he's got a cannon on him, so there could be some passes out there that really skew that number.
Because maybe he connects with Amari Cooper, for a 42-yard gain, and that makes things work.
Yeah, you might see it. Like I said, he's the king of that high arcing drop pass.
Yeah,
it's just see what happens. I don't know, 5.6 yards.
Yeah, I'm going to look out for that. We'll discuss tomorrow morning. See what the combined average yards per attempt is with these two quarterbacks. And if Mitchell Trubisky continues to play Mitchell Trubisky, does Kenny Pickett become the starting quarterback in week 4? Well, because now you've got kind of a week and a half to prepare him. And look, the thing about Kenny Pickett, he has a lot of reps. He's played a lot of games at the University of Pittsburgh, right? So he's familiar with the organization because they share the same facility. So the Thursday night game, maybe you start him in week 4. You go right to the young guy because he's your future. We know what Mitchell Trubisky is and what he isn't. So maybe that's something you look at. But I'll go with Cleveland. They're at home. I think, if TJ Watt was playing, I'd go with Pittsburgh. That's how good he is and how important he is for the Steelers. But he's not there. So, I'll go with Cleveland at home. But this is maybe a snooze fest. Maybe better off watching Aaron Judge try to hit his 61st home run against the Red Sox. Yeah. Not in a single game, but for the season.
No, it's all right. I mean, it'll be fine when he's a Red Sox.
That would be interesting. He grew up a Red Sox fan, but he grew up in Northern California, so I'm pushing for the Giants to sign him.
Oh, of course you are. Of course you are, because you're a big homer, John. That's all you are. Just a homer.
Oh yeah,
just
from
a homer.
3,000 miles away. Here I am, San Francisco.
Oh man. Anyways, so obviously Sunday brings us quite a bit more intriguing quarterback matchups, and obviously the one at the top of the list is Brady versus Rodgers. Interesting matchup. I mean, we're not going to really dive too much into it because it's Thursday, and we're going to wrap up the show here in a few minutes. But it's going to be interesting to see who's actually out there for the Buccaneers. If ever there was a chance for Rodgers to win a regular season game against Tampa, and he does not have good numbers against Tampa in his career, it would be now, just because they're so limited offensively. However, John, that defense is still really good, and this Packers offense has been, let's just say, it doesn't inspire a whole lot of hope. Let's put it this way. At least I'm in a vacuum looking at the first 2 games. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I think the Bucs are going to end up having Julio Jones. I don't know how quickly Cole Beasley's going to be ready. He's on the practice squad technically right now, but they're down to their 3rd left tackle. Obviously, we already talked about their backups. They already have a backup center. I mean, I still like the Bucs in this game, and we're going to obviously make our official picks tomorrow. But the intrigue here is the two old guys who, again, despite all the hooping and hawing over, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, these 2 guys are still the best in the league because, again, what constitutes excitement and talent in this day and age is whether or not you can do a ridiculous highlight reel throw, which doesn't even necessarily have to be completed or even close to completed. You just got to look cool doing it. These guys still continue to deliver and, year in and year out. So obviously I give them the edge. And John, today or yesterday or whenever the interview was recorded or done, Rodgers once again reiterated that he does not expect to play till 45. So this could be, hopefully not, the very last time we see these two players go head to head.
Yeah, it could be. Although, if they both win their division, they would play next year, provided Brady's playing. I don't think Brady's
Aaron
playing
Rodgers
next year.
playing.
Provided Aaron Rodgers is playing it. Yeah, exactly. And look, I think Rodgers has 3 years left on his contract, but they're all 1-year deals. So, he can he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, he has basically the ability to make a decision after any of the next couple of years. Like
he's got the LeBron contract. That's what LeBron's done really for the second half of his career, which is wise. I mean, he gives you a little more flexibility and maybe gives the team a little bit more flexibility. But yeah, I think he's going to play a couple more years. No, 45. That would mean he'd have to play another 6 years, which I just don't see. I think he probably could. Look, I don't think he's as maniacal as Brady as far as his conditioning and what he puts in his body. Obviously, he's done ayahuasca, whatever the hell that is and what that means. But he does take care of himself. This is not Ben Roethlisberger, who shows up at 275 pounds looking like he just ate a cheese pizza before practice. He does take care of himself, and always as Brady has. So yeah, this could be the last time, unless they meet in the playoffs, which would be I guess a dream matchup. I wouldn't be looking forward to that. I would think of some other team I'd rather play. Yeah, I just remember. I remember 2 years ago when they beat the Saints in the divisional round. I'm like, oh great, the NFC Championship game finally at home, and I'm hoping New Orleans comes in with a pea shooter quarterback who probably couldn't throw in the cold, and shows up Tom Brady. Oh well.
Yeah, slight difference. So, but either way, we will enjoy it. Just like, I wouldn't say just like, because again, I always found the Peyton Manning Tom Brady duels far more intriguing, and that doesn't take anything away from Rodgers. It's just more or less the high regard I hold, obviously, both Brady and Peyton Manning, and
they played every year. It seemed like, because they were winning their divisions, they played every year. They've met 5 times in the playoffs, and people do forget that Manning is 3-2 against Brady in the playoffs, including 3-1 in the AFC Championship games. So, you can't have a rivalry if the one time you met in the playoffs, the guy lost. That's really not a rivalry. And that's the situation with Brady and Rodgers was almost more like an idea. It's almost like Kobe and LeBron never met in the finals.
Yeah.
Like, these two great players for a long period of time, always contending. They never met in the finals. You kind of almost had that thing with Brady and Rodgers up until 2 years ago. And I get they played different conferences, but there were opportunities. If Rodgers did what he had to do in NFC Championship game, they would have met in the Super Bowl in 14. 16 was a stretch because I thought Atlanta was a better team than Green Bay, but they should have met, in Super Bowl 49. It should have been Patriots Packers instead of Patriots Seahawks, but it didn't happen.
Hey, on a side note, before we close this out, you ever find it funny that like each and every week, because you brought up Super Bowl 49, so it just kind of reminded me of this thought. Like each and every week, we see players constantly throwing at the 1 yard line, but yet the decision to throw with Russell Wilson at the 1 yard line was the worst decision in the history of football. Don't you find that funny?
Yeah, no, it's ironic, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, at that time, I felt, I had no problem with him throwing the football in that situation. I would have moved him out, though. I mean, first of all, he's 5'10". You've got him in a very condensed area in the pocket. It's not easy for a guy that size.
My whole thing with that was I always kind of blamed Chris Collinsworth because, like, I felt like his he immediately, without, like, obviously the Patriots having basically clinched the Super Bowl, his first reaction was to immediately whine about how bad the play call was without any context. And, again, you think about it in hindsight and you're like, well, it wasn't actually a bad play. And then I was sitting there this weekend watching quarterback after quarterback after quarterback throwing at the 1 yard line. And I'm just sitting there laughing like, I remember people telling me that's one of the reasons why Brady won a Super Bowl is because of the worst call in NFL history. I'm like, come on, people. So, anyways.
Yeah, no, people do that. They do throw at the one, but I would have got him on an RPO or just get him outside the pocket.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure. Sure.
That's what I would have done with it, especially a mobile quarterback.
Well, I mean, in hindsight, John, Russell Wilson just isn't that good to trust in that situation.
Yeah, no, I mean, he hasn't been back to the Super Bowl in that situation. I mean, it's just, look, that's the most monumental player in the history of the Super Bowl, I think. I mean, because so much would have changed. If Seattle gets in the end zone, they're back-to-back.
Yeah, legacies play a factor because, like, you can sit there and say, "Oh, well, James Harrison's swing in Super Bowl 48."
That was big too,
I mean that or Super Bowl 45 or no 44, 44. I don't know 40. I don't know one of the 40s. I don't
it was
know.
40, 39. I think it was Super Bowl 40.
Right? No, that was Pittsburgh and Seattle. This was 2008. 2008, so 43. Yeah.
43.
Okay, that's what it was. All right. Yeah.
No, that was
sorry.
John,
I blacked out after like February 3rd, 2008 till about.
That's true. Yeah.
September 2009. I was pretty much on a blackout stage. I don't know why. Maybe.
Well,
maybe it coincided.
Played halftime.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bruce Springsteen played halftime in that Super Bowl, which was
did it? I don't even remember.
Yep.
It's a
you
blur.
Don't remember
it's
that.
A blur.
You just
I don't even know.
Away, but
I did see the boss once though, but that's beside the point. So, all right. Well, that's going to do it for us here today. We will be back tomorrow. We'll give our full slate of game picks for the weekend and have a little fun doing so. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Give us a follow on Twitter at FPC Radio Live, at Full Press NFL. And, of course, go to fullpresscoverage.com to check out all of our great articles, podcasts, and anything sport-related that you might like. So thank you, everyone, and we will talk to you tomorrow.